Well, good morning. Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you all for coming along to BAFTA, first time that we've used this venue. We've got a great agenda for you today. Really enjoyed putting it together. The first up after me, Andrew Kennedy and Liz McCreesh, who'll talk about some products coming along from SAS. I think everybody in the audience will know of SAS and their prominent role in the analytics industry, but some of the new products really are very exciting indeed. We've then got a case study, a neat case study. One of my colleagues from the US, Kelsey Wiggins, is over to take us through that. It's an interesting application of looking at energy consumption in a manufacturing customer of ours, really analysing or forecasting energy trends and targeting energy trends to make sure that energy is being used as wisely as possible. After that, we go on to the first of three parts of the same story, really. You perhaps know, we've talked about in previous events like this, that data storytelling is a very big theme at the moment with many of the vendors in the BI and analytics space. So we're going to tell a story, the same story, but dividing it into three parts. And part one, before the break, we'll use the Microsoft Power BI tool set to illustrate it. We'll have a break at about 11. Perhaps for half an hour, I think it's scheduled for. And then when we come back, we'll pick up the same story, but a different phase of it, using a tool from Qlik. Many of you will be aware of QlikView. Perhaps you're also aware of QlikSense, which is a new product from QlikView, or from Qlik. So that will be the second part of the story. Then we'll put that on hold for a little bit and take a slightly different direction. Two of my fellow directors, Julia Honigsberger and Paul Belaski, will pick up with you some of a very prominent thing that's happening in our customer base, the very significant adoption of Salesforce, and with that, the need for analytics around Salesforce. So Julia will talk about some of the scenarios. Paul will demonstrate how Salesforce can integrate with some of the products that are out there today. And in addition to that, we're very, very lucky, very honoured actually, to have Gavin Ganane from Salesforce.com Europe with us. His normal role is talking to CIOs and CTOs about how they can best get benefit from the Salesforce platform. But in addition to that, he's currently one of the few people in Europe with a lot of exposure to the Wave product that is an analytics product coming from Salesforce. So quite early days for that product, but Gavin's here to share some perspectives with us today. So we're very thrilled about that. After that, we'll pick up the third part of the story, but using Tableau to do the storyboarding, as it were. We'll wrap up briefly and we'll have lunch at about 1 o'clock. We hope you can join us for lunch. It's a good chance to sit down, talk to consultants or Gavin or whoever you want to about some of the content today, or if you'd like to, just talk to your neighbours or people in the audience. It's a chance to network and make connections that hopefully will be useful for you. BI and Analytics Continuum is a kind of important framework for today, really. In our industry, people come up with definitions and they almost compete. It's like a competitive sport. How can we define things and shift things the way we want them to be? So definitions can be helpful, but they can also be distracting, really. When you get competition between, is this analytics or is this business intelligence? What kind of analytics is this? Is it predictive analytics? Is it embedded analytics? Sometimes you can lose the essence by dissecting things too much. So we think it's important, in fact, just to think of things on a continuum and not get hung up on definitions and boundaries between things, because boundaries rarely help. Boundaries are rarely very real in practice. So on the continuum, at the top end, we have what we call productionized business intelligence. Systems that are built formally, robustly, to pull data together and align data, to make it available for a wide audience, very broad base of users, to support reporting and query and, to some extent, some analysis. And moving through the spectrum a little bit, many people will want something more ad hoc than is provided just by the productionized BI systems. So particularly the ability to bring in their own data sets and map it to the other organization and data there. The ability to stimulate ideas and insights, which is the objective of an awful lot of this kind of work, to maybe produce visualizations of that, to get some compelling way of not just having the insight but also sharing the insight. And perhaps turning data around about, turning things inside out, looking for relationships, looking for hypotheses and testing hypotheses. And at the niche end of the spectrum, we're getting down to fewer people who may want to avail themselves of statistical modeling and mathematical modeling approaches to quantify some of the relationships that they suspect are there in the data, perhaps to simulate markets or simulate complex systems, or to make predictions, maybe predictions, forecasts out into time, or predictions about what customers will do when faced with particular choices, particular propositions. So that's the continuum, and we think it's more sensible to think in that continuum rather than to think about discrete definitions and get hung up on that. Why is that continuum important? Because all points on the continuum really are about encouraging people, getting people into data-driven decision-making rather than the opposite of that, the gut-based, opinion-based. And a study, 2011, so a few years ago now, made by a team of economists from MIT and Wharton, concluded that data-driven decision-making is correlated with a lot of very good things: better productivity, better return on assets, better return on equity, better asset utilization, better market value. And not just coincidentally, their conclusion was that it's causal, that somehow being fact-based, being evidence-based, being data-driven is associated with better results in organizations. The MIT Sloan Management Review, similar conclusion, but a slightly different take on it. So in the box there, top performers approach business operations differently than their peers do. Specifically, they put analytics to use in the widest possible range of decisions, large and small. So large and small, not just big things, but large and small. They're twice as likely to use analytics to guide future strategies, twice as likely to use insights to guide day-to-day operations. So again, large and small, strategic, day-to-day, analytics everywhere embedded into the company's ways of working. And at the top there, the bullet points, so increasingly as managers, we're given ever wider responsibilities for things that perhaps aren't local to us, we're not familiar with in the way that a local would be. So if we're managing somebody else's local, and it's not that familiar to us, managing by gut instinct is not a very good option. Or more starkly, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So data-driven, fact-based, the BI and analytics continuum is the context in which we think it's sensible to think about what the vendors are doing in 2015. So we expect to see software vendors working to round out their offerings to meet all points of that spectrum. And I think as we go through the morning this morning, you will see some very distinct evidence of that and pointers to where it's going. We're not the only people that think that. Gartner has talked about that work, and that will be a kind of multi-year project for many of the vendors, that it's not instant to get their product sets where they need to be. When we talk with customers, we're working with customers all of the time. Our focus is business intelligence and analytics. That's all we do. We're a services company. When we talk to customers, particularly in IT functions, there tends to be an anxiety with many of them about what they should be doing about analytics, about how they should be organizing for analytics, and to some extent as well about the cloud. So an interesting thing, people are using the cloud, but very often in an application-led way. So Salesforce is a cloud thing. Anaplan, which we featured in a previous one of these events, it's cloud-based. People get led, or if business people are led to the cloud for business reasons and application reasons, then cloud gets adopted quite naturally. But other than that, there tends to be anxiety about it. The role of services will be important. Well, I would say that because we're a services company, but also, Gartner says that. Important at this stage to help integrate technologies. What we need is out there, but sometimes there's a bit of integration to be done. But also to help organizations to do the analysis while they develop the know-how to do it themselves. And recently and increasingly, we're seeing that as well as being asked to help people put in place self-service environments, we're being asked to help create programs really, to help people self-serve. And within that, one of the key elements is to promote within business functions power users. How can we encourage the emergence of power users who themselves will be guides for their colleagues in business functions to make sure that investments in data and technology in this area really get picked up and really get internalized into the business. So on to a few things from vendors. This will be a very quick overview, but just to give a few pointers. Tableau software, top of the pops in many ways. So Gartner says that vendors in general in the BI and analytics space have been, the traditional market share leaders have been losing share to people like Tableau. Tableau has been making massive gains. I think it's the fastest growing business in the space ever. Its new release, Tableau 9, is in beta. They tagline it, fast meets smart. I hope they can live up to that. Parallel query execution. So people who've used Tableau for heavy things have been critical for some time that it isn't better at exploiting some of the parallel processing that frequently is available in Teradata or some of the engines that Tableau would be used on top of. And in version 9 it can do that. Drag and drop analytics, instant analytics, well that's the smart bit of the fast meets smart. New data source connectors, including to Salesforce, there's a theme here, but also to R, to SAS and SPSS. So again, analytics being embraced and built in. Excel data cleaning. Excel's always important. Integration with Excel is always important, but in this context, it's the recognition that in a world where people talk a lot about analytics and big data, sometimes analytics is about small data, or at least the kind of data that arrives in Excel. In fact, I think the most common, the top two places where Tableau finds itself being used is with Excel and with SQL Server. So the ability to clean data easily with Excel is important. Mobile is obviously important. Improvements to the ability to take snapshots offline for mobile consumption, and enhancements to their iOS app. SAS. Andrew and Liz in a few moments will show you some of this stuff, but in the subheading there, SAS Visual Analytics and SAS Visual Statistics, two very new, very striking products. So when we started to look at them, we were amazed at just how good they were at challenging some of the existing products, some of the leading products in the market, as well as taking it a step further into the statistical and analytical world. And really the intent of those products to bring new, friendly, easy to use visual tools, making SAS very accessible for a wide audience, but also leading into the full stack, the proven, the market leading analytics product stack that we all know SAS has. So it's a gateway, an entry, but a very powerful entry to that world. Perhaps people are less aware that the SAS Institute has been making very big investments in Hadoop integration. So they're not slow to embrace the open source world and the large scale data world. They're very fast. In fact, to some degree, they're also players in the R, the open source statistics market as well. Click. So I mentioned earlier ClickSense, 2 products now from ClickView, the proven data discovery platform, so they're established platform that many people use for end-to-end models really, and dashboards, analytics, fast in-memory business intelligence. They acquired Visual BI in February, so a very recent acquisition with the very specific aim of improving Excel integration, but also PowerPoint integration with Microsoft Office tools in particular, but also rendering pixel-perfect reports. ClickSense is their next-generation self-service data visualization application. So 2 products, ClickSense, very new, launched in version 1 last September. Version 1.1 just came out, and you'll be seeing version 1.1 this morning. Version 2 expected middle of this year, June 2015. Microsoft, slightly different approach really. I think many of us will be aware that last year there was a big change at the very top of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer handing over. And there's also been big changes at the top really of the BI and analytics part of Microsoft. A new person in charge of the data platform and cloud enterprise. So from our point of view, SQL Server and the Azure cloud offerings. From the outside, from SAP, so fresh or refreshed thinking within Microsoft from SAP. In the middle there, General Manager for Business Intelligence, a new person, James Phillips, from outside, fresh from outside, a Silicon Valley successful, proven entrepreneur, whose statements are really that the offerings from Microsoft in this space need to be simpler and they need to work together. The new and the old will be made together, will be made to work together as people expect and demand them to be. And then another influence from the outside, from Amazon, in charge of information management, machine learning, the Azure ML line, machine learning, and the very recent, I think January, saw the acquisition by Microsoft of Revolution Analytics. So Revolution Analytics, I think we've featured at previous events like this, was a leading player in the open source R space, still is, Microsoft say, will still be allowed to be a leading player in the open source R space, but also will be part of the Microsoft stable now. So integration to be done there. The challenge that we have taken on with many customers, both existing users of the Microsoft product set, but also prospective users of the Microsoft product set in the last year or longer actually, has very often been to explain what's available from Microsoft and how they get it, and how they can use things together and what they need to underpin the Power BI product set in particular. And so one job that needs to be done is simplification. You can't obviously see much simplification in this chart straight off. So I think that James Phillips has a lot to sort out, but they are working on it and they are recognizing it. The encouraging things here, I suppose, on the right-hand side of the slide, iPad mobile. So the overt recognition that they have to play in a world that is not just a Microsoft world, but to get into the iPad, the Apple, other people's worlds. Also, second bullet point, and the bottom part there, analysis services gateway. So a proper connection between the new Power BI products and the very established analysis services, very powerful world of analysis services. Salesforce, well, you'll hear more about that later, so I won't take time on it now. What I will do, just to sum up really, is that the technologies will continue to evolve. Every time we do one of these, there's some startling news. But what I would say is that what you need does exist already today. So in the visualization space, plenty of very good options. In the statistics, data mining space, plenty of very good options. Data storage, plenty of very good options, ever more opening up all of the time, both your traditional relational, massively parallel relational database processing, Hadoop, hybrid, Hadoop with a relational, all sorts of options, and cloud platforms as well to help with the scaling out. And final point there, so the software industry in many ways is taking care of the things we need. It will get there in the end, and it's producing things along the way all of the time. And that means we can focus on business goals, what's always been important to Thorogood, focus on the business goals and defining the analytic opportunity. So with that, I will hand over to Liz McCreesh.